That actually depends. There are two ways of looking at solving a problem, right? One is to actually invent a new way of catching mice, and the other is building a better mousetrap. There is no clear and fast answer on which is better. Inventing a new way to do something can be disruptive. Inventing a better and cheaper and faster way can also be disruptive. And there are many different examples of that. I mean, one example would be if you look at the taxi business. We've long used to just picking up a phone, calling a cab company and getting a cab. But now companies like My Taxi and Taxi Monger have even started up being disruptive within that established industry. Did they change things by much? No. Instead of calling somebody, you now use an app. But that app has actually made it a lot easier. And by using that app, you actually route the nearest available taxi to you. So that's made it disruptive. Not by inventing something new, but by making an established model better, faster, and cheaper. At the other end of the scale, you got new stuff which comes in and totally changes how we do things. Like Cortana, for example. It's a new personal assistant. It changes the way how you interact with your phone. Cortana learns about you and also suggests things to you, so it becomes more helpful. So it's one step above search. That's going to be disruptive as well. So you're looking at two ways of disruptive, and they both work depending on the circumstance. Okay, there are many of that, right? Let's start with the ones who are actually finding a better mousetrap, right? Doing it faster, cheaper, and cleaner that way. One's an example I gave earlier, taxi companies, Taxi Monger, My Taxi. That's bringing disrupt stuff. And then you got Uber coming in, which is disrupting that same model in a different way by tying up private cars into it. Two recent examples we worked with was two teams which came out of our Imagine Cup competition. Both these teams worked on projects which are applicable in the medical field. One team actually built a robot to help stroke patients rehabilitate. Right? This is going to be disruptive because it's a portable, cheap robot which can actually take to somebody's home and help them rehab after a stroke, as opposed to a stroke patient today having to go to a physiotherapy center and use all the gym equipment there. So this model will actually disrupt how those patients live in a good way. It makes it easier for them, better for them, more access to that. Another example would be another team which built a mini ECG, which is powered off an app of a Windows phone, right? So what this does is patients no longer have to actually go to the hospital to get their ECG taken. They can actually do it at home, and the results of that app can actually be emailed to the doctor for quicker and faster monitoring. So this saves patients from actually traveling. This saves doctors' visits, saves queuing time at the doctors, and also frees up the doctor's time to actually concentrate on the most serious issues rather than just monitoring. So these are just two simple examples of how disruption is happening in everyday life. You mentioned two of them. Social is one, mobility is the other one, then you've got big data and cloud. These four, even though they are the four trends today, are also interconnected, right? One, we're all increasingly getting social. Things like Internet of Things is going to come in. And traditionally, when you talk about Internet of Things, you talk about sensors embedded in roads or on buildings or whatever. But we all carry in our pockets a device with sensors already, right? Our mobile phone, you've got an accelerometer, you've got GPS, you've got a light meter on it. That can be connected with each other, allowing greater connection between each of us as individuals, fulfilling the social aspect of it. And obviously all of this is going to be enabled by the cloud, the apps from the cloud, storage in the cloud, things like that. And when all of this comes together, you're going to generate tons and tons of information. Now, analyzing this information to provide valuable insights on how we live, to then allow us to then create something else which makes things better, that's big data. Right? So it all comes together in a mobile world, and that definition of mobility today has changed. It's no longer just a mobile phone, right? It's anything we do, wherever we do. And the idea behind it is to have that same experience, whether you're at home, you're in the office, or outside in a cafe. Okay, I think one industry which will be very quickly impacted by crowdfunding is actually FMCG, fast-moving consumer goods, primarily because of the term itself, fast-moving. A lot of times companies waste money in putting out a product to the market which then doesn't get market acceptance. Crowdfunding allows them to actually test that market by getting people to fund the development of the product even before it hits the market. So it's one very quick way of getting validation. If nobody is willing to fund your product, you clearly know it's going to fail in the market. Or if you, the other way is if you really get overwhelming response, you know it's going to succeed in the marketplace. The bigger picture is crowdfunding gives startups and people who want to test out their idea in the market before actually going to market a great resource to actually do that. It saves money in development. It saves them from making the mistake of actually putting out a wrong product and spending all that money in marketing and then finding out no one actually wants it. At the same time, it allows the actual buyer, the customers themselves, to invest in the product and be a part of the product cycle even before the product hits the market. So I think it should be something everybody takes into account. Two projects I mentioned earlier, the stroke rehabilitation robot and the mini ECG. One thing which they did after winning our competition was they went on to pitch.my. It's a local crowdfunding site, and they both managed to raise funds equivalent for both the projects. And that's a very good example of a project which has won a competition and then also received market acceptance. So now, if somebody else were to actually bet on that startup, to invest in that startup, you already know they're going to make it because the market has said, yes, we want to buy this, and we're willing to put up our money out there even before the product is ready.
Right. Okay, question. Can you name 3 or 4 industries primated to be disrupted by crowdfunding?
Okay, I think FMCG is one. I mentioned that earlier. I think the other one is actually apps, software, right? The whole app economy has actually allowed people to test ideas and see which one gains acceptance. Because it's very cheap and very easy to very quickly develop an app, you can easily throw it out, say, into the Windows Store or the Windows Phone Marketplace and test literally within a week by the amount of downloads you get or the people who are willing to pay for your app, whether the app idea is going to succeed. And you don't have to start with the full-blown app as well. You could start with one feature first, and then as the app gets downloaded and gets more interest, you can then keep adding more features, right? And then very quickly iterate, adding and removing popular and unpopular features to the actual one you want. So initially in the short term, I think FMCG and apps will benefit most from crowdfunding. Okay, I think it's one end looking at the sexy new gadgets and all that coming out. But I think we're also forgetting that, as I said earlier, in our pockets we all carry a device with so many sensors, right? Networking all those devices together, our phones, our phablets, all of that, by itself is already an Internet of Things network. And then you add in the other stuff, traffic sensors, road sensors, vehicle sensors, all of that. So once you wire it together and then use the information generated by that using big data methodologies to actually get some valuable insight out of it, that's when Internet of Things will really happen. And then the new gadgets and devices will come in and enhance and add to it. I mean, there are also privacy issues with some wearables, but I don't think that's become a problem yet in Malaysia because we just don't have it yet.
The other question in my mind is how would traditional businesses adopt the new way of the millennials are doing businesses and work together?
Okay. I think millennials, one thing about millennials is they're very indecisive. That's one. And two is they're always looking for quick gratification, quick wins, right? Which means that it's for a lot of traditional retailers and people traditionally selling to this group, it's going to be hit and miss. You don't really know whether they're going to buy it or you're going to fail in that. But by using some of the stuff we talked about earlier, crowdfunding, quick iterations, testing, right? You should be able to adopt a model where you quickly iterate your product towards what they want. It's not going to be a release once and then expect the world to come to you. It's going to be release once, get the feedback, change it a little bit, release again. So that cycle has to be very fast. And we're talking about at least 3 months between releases. So to sum it up in one sentence, I'll say release early, release often. And then take the feedback and keep iterating your product towards what they want.
This is a very last question. On top of it, 3 advice towards a disruptive business model.
Okay. First thing I'd say is don't don't always try to think too much of science fiction, right? I mean, it's sexy to try to invent something which hasn't been created yet, but there are a lot of real-world problems which, in solving, can also mean a lot, right? So start first with a very clear problem statement. Look around you, find an itch which irritates you. What that means is if there's something which bothers you or annoys you, it probably bothers and annoys a whole bunch of other people. Use that as a starting point to build a solution, and then you know, because that itch also annoys a whole bunch of other people, your solution will help them. So don't be too science fiction, don't try to jump too much over the moon. Lots of problems around us, pick one of them, find a solution to it.